Good afternoon and welcome to the Expedition 5859 Crew News Conference and NASA's Johnson Space Center. We're here today with NASA astronaut Anne McClain, Canadian Space Agency astronaut David Saint-Jacques, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko. Thanks so much for joining us. I know y'all have been getting ready for your launch coming up in December. I think December 19th Houston time or December 20th in Kazakhstan, where you'll be launching from. So I know you've been very busy, but we are excited to get to know you a little bit. We are going to start by letting them talk a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to be taking questions from folks here in the room. You can submit questions online on social media using the hashtag AskNASA, or you can, we have reporters on the phone bridge as well who will be joining us. If you are on the phone bridge, you can press *1 to get your question submitted, and *2 if you hear your question answered and you need to withdraw it. But we'll start with a quick introduction. So Anne McClain was selected as an astronaut in 2013, and this will be her first space flight. She's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army and a native of Spokane, Washington. And she's also a sports lover and rugby player. We have some rugby players from here in Houston in the audience to help cheer her on. So why don't we start with that, Anne? Can you tell us a little bit about how team sports has played a part in your path to becoming an astronaut?
Sure. Well, all growing up in Spokane, all the way through college, and throughout my adult life, I've played team sports, and I've played everything under the sun. I've tried it all, and when I finally found rugby, I found something that I was good at because it didn't require much coordination, at least not the positions I played. But I found that team sports really developed the idea of working hard for the benefit of the team, and especially when I played on the national rugby team, we were spread all the way around the country, but we had a goal, to do well in our international competitions, and the only way that we could be successful is to trust that each of us were going to prepare when we weren't looking. When I went to throw the ball to somebody, I needed to trust that they had been at the gym. I needed to trust that they'd been working on their skills and that they were going to be there. And much like our crews, when we fly to space, we've all been training very separately. We grew up on different sides of the planet, and now we come together and we immediately rely on one another for success. The other thing that rugby really taught me was how to push past the limits that you think were limits. You really learn what you're capable of in the 60th minute of a rugby match when you are physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, and the decisions that you make mentally and physically in the next 20 minutes are going to determine the success of the team. And especially I find that in spacewalks and working in the spacesuit, you hit that point of physical exhaustion, and the only time I've ever experienced that was at the end of a rugby match, and really being able to just bear down, concentrate, and accomplish the mission.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right, moving to the left, next we have David Saint-Jacques from the Canadian Space Agency. He was selected in 2009 and has on his resume engineer, astrophysicist, and family doctor. He's born in Quebec City, Canada, and is conversant in 3 languages and is married with 3 children. So, David, we've got a pretty diverse list of degrees. Was that on purpose?
Yeah, it does. Looking back, it looks even strange to me. But it just happened one step at a time. I think if one thing has defined me as a child was curiosity. I'm one of those people who just can't stand it when I don't understand something. I just got to get to the bottom of it. So that led to me really liking school, really, and trying to stay there as long as I could. So, I started with engineering because I wanted to understand how things worked, how machines worked, and moved on in life to wanting to learn more about how the universe works, how nature works, and that was science, and ultimately, wanting to know how people work, really. And so that, to me, this quest for knowledge and understanding is, I think, really something at the core of who I am. And I think that's at the core of space exploration as well. It's all about understanding where we come from, our planet, our universe. It's also all about exploring and all about, at the end, expanding our perspective. Because that really is a quest, I think, of everybody. When we're born, our world is very small, and it's just us, and our parents. And then eventually it's our city and our country, and then our continent and our planet. And one day, I remember seeing those images of beautiful Earth floating in the middle of space. You're like, wow, that's not just one way to look at things. That is reality. That perspective just took my breath away, and I determined that I wanted to be an explorer. That's what I wanted to be in life. But first, I need to stay in university and try to understand as much as I could from books first, and then eventually from going out there and traveling, learning languages, staying fit, and one thing led to another. I didn't really think being an astronaut was an option or a possibility, but it was like a model to me. Be curious and just try to keep trying to understand who you are, where you're from, and what can we do to be better.
Well, I definitely think you'll be able to check the Explorer box once you've arrived at the space station, right? All right, and finally on the end, we have Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko. He is from the Moscow region and was an engineer with Roscosmos before becoming a cosmonaut in 1996. And this is going to be his 4th trip to the space station. He's going in with 533 days already spent in space, and will be the Expedition 59 commander as well. So as the voice of experience on the team, Oleg, what tips have you been giving David and Anne?
Ну, судя по датам, да, я здесь, наверное, самый великовозрастный.
Sure, judging by the dates, I'm probably the most experienced person here.
Да. Ну, это будет 4-й полет, но это новый экипаж, новые задачи. Вот. Модернизированный корабль «Союз». Так получается, что «Союз» был задуман русскими инженерами достаточно грамотно, что за столь долгий период его эксплуатации он постоянно совершенствуется, модернизируется, поэтому все в этой экспедиции будет достаточно новым для меня и привлекательным. Я не потерял интерес еще к космическим полетам.
Indeed, it's going to be my 4th space flight, but it's a new crew, a new mission, and a new modernized Soyuz. It turns out that the Soyuz was so well designed by the Russian engineers that it keeps being modernized, and there is always something new. And it sounds like I still have interest for space flights.
All right, well, I hope you find a lot to keep you busy on this flight. So now we're going to open it up to questions here in the audience. We'll start in the room, and then as I mentioned, you can send in your questions on social media using the hashtag AskNASA, and we'll also be taking questions on the phone bridge. You can let us know that you have a question by pressing *1, and then if your question gets answered before you get to ask it, press *2 to withdraw. So we'll start here in the room with Mark Crow. If you can address your question to who you want to answer it, that would be helpful.
Mark Carreau with Aviation Week, and my question's for Oleg. Your 4th flight, what motivates you, what drives you to go back to the space station, and do you have something on your 4th trip you would like to achieve for the benefit of the crew, Russia, and the partners?
Ну, знаете, человечество, наверное, в полной мере нельзя назвать космической цивилизацией, потому что мы летаем на низко, на околоземной орбите. Поэтому мне бы хотелось вот своими полетами ну, каким-то образом продвинуть человечество к тому, чтобы оно совершало дальние перелеты, то есть поучаствовать в тех исследованиях, экспериментах и в конечном итоге чтобы человечество действительно стало космической цивилизацией, осваивало бы не только околоземное пространство, но и ближайшие планеты, в конечном итоге, может быть, полетело в другие миры. Вот такая цель.
I know humankind cannot really call itself a space civilization, at least not yet. And I do hope that my trip to low Earth orbit does something to help us accomplish this goal. I would really love to see humankind reach into the far reaches of space, into the depths of space. And I hope that all the experiments, that all we do here will push humankind forward on the way to the faraway planets and to the depths of space.
Okay. All right, how about Robert Pearl? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Ryan Korsgaard from KPRC TV here in Houston, and this is for Anne. Talk about the importance of being on board station when one of those first commercial crew vehicles arrives. Not only that moment, but what it means for the future of U.S. space exploration.
Sure, and that's definitely an exciting aspect of this mission that we can be part of. I think when you look over the history of spaceflight over the last 50 years, I mean, that's a relatively short time, and every vehicle that's been built, every flight that's been taken is an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. This snapshot in time, we've been flying, previously the shuttle and now the Soyuz to the space station for about 18 years now. In fact, the 18-year anniversary is coming up here. And you know, the thing that we're always doing at NASA and at Roscosmos and at CSA, all of our agencies are looking at what's next. You know, what's the next step that we can take to go where mankind has never been before. And so for us, that's deep space, you know, going back to the Mars missions and the Moon missions. So what does that mean for the commercialization? It means that is the next logical step in space exploration. Low Earth orbit will always have people in it, I believe. It will always be visited, and the benefits of science experiments in microgravity in low Earth orbit are too numerous to just leave and move on to the next thing. And so with this commercialization, what I see is low Earth orbit is going to become accessible to so many more industries, so many more countries, and so many more people. And that's absolutely the right next step for us to be taken. At NASA, we're very excited about the commercialization of space. And so for us to be able to be on space station when some of those first test flights arrive, it is really just, it's getting to be present for something that it's going to be in history books for years to come. It's pretty incredible.
I think we had one from Robert.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. For the three of you, if your launch date holds, it will be 57 years to the day after the UN passed their first resolution on the international cooperation on the peaceful uses of outer space. And it'll also be soon after the 20th anniversary of the International Space Station's first component being launched. I'm wondering, from your perspective, if, as an international crew, do you think we've mastered that international cooperation part? Is there still improvements to be made? How have we progressed over those 6 decades?
So I can start off on that. First of all, at the crew level, we are very fortunate because I will say that most days that we show up at work and we work with one another, we've been training together for over a year for this flight together. We spent a lot of time together. We work together. And on our crew level, it's actually very easy to forget that we're from 3 different countries and 3 different places because we're just doing the same things every day. We have the same concerns. We have the same issues in dealing with our families as to what our travel schedules. And so we really just connect as human beings. When we come to events like this, we're kind of reminded, oh yeah, this is pretty phenomenal and this is pretty rare that we get this opportunity to work with one another. And so I think from that aspect, it's extremely important that we continue because at the end of the day, the Earth is a small place and we're all in it together, and all the decisions that we make affect one another. And so for our perspective, rather than taking politics and letting them inform our friendships, we actually take our friendships and let them inform our view of how politics should be and how our world could be. And I think absolutely the peaceful exploration of space is absolutely a unifying aspect. We may have one of the first astronauts from the UAE on board at the same time we're there, and that's an area of the world that hasn't had astronauts before, and that's another first. And this is just people getting excited about exploration. And I think that working with this crew, it's just it's an incredible opportunity, but it's also an example of what humans can do when we put aside our differences and really focus on what motivates us.
Yeah, I think Anne summarized it from our individual perspective. I'd just like to add, but first, thanks for bringing this up because it's not just an aside or a small aspect of our job. I think professionally, it is one of our major sources of pride that we can be a daily demonstration that we can work together. When there are political differences, there are problems, we don't disregard them, but space has over and over proven that if we manage to find a path to work together, we can, and we can accomplish incredible things when we decide to do so. So it gives me a lot of hope for the future of mankind that we are consistently managed to demonstrate that we can work together in space and we achieve these incredible things. So it is actually fundamental, I think, to space exploration, that aspect that it somehow helps human be better and be wiser and work together on another plane. Maybe it is a reflection of the fact that seen from orbit, you can't really boundaries and borders are, obviously a creation of the human mind when you see the planet from far away. And that doesn't mean they don't exist, but it means that we can maybe change the rules of the game. One day we can hope that we'll be even more integrated and work together better and focus our energies in the right direction. So.
Ну, что я могу добавить? Конечно, и Соединенные Штаты в кооперации с Канадой, и Объединенная Европа, и Россия в отдельности могут сделать аппарат и вылететь за пределы околоземной орбиты. Но какова цена будет этому проекту? Поэтому альтернативы тому, что когда страны объединят свои интеллектуальные ресурсы, финансовые ресурсы, технологические ресурсы, альтернативы никакой нет. Это будет гораздо интереснее. Это будет мотивация для людей, живущих на Земле. Поэтому вот такие крупные международные проекты, тем более в космосе, нужно реализовывать только совместно.
Well, what can I add? Of course, the US, the EU, Canada, and Russia can join their forces and build a spaceship that can fly far, far away into the deep reaches of space. But what the price is going to be? Of course, there is no alternative from the technological, the human resources, and from every kind of point of view. The only way to realize such huge projects is to cooperate internationally.
It's always a great part of the International Space Station. Next question right here from Sophie.
Hi, Sophie Sanchez. I write Cosmic Chicago for Chicago Now. My question is for Oleg. Has there been, given that this is your fourth flight, has there been something that's changed significantly on the Soyuz that's changed your space flight experience? And if not, what would you change about the space flight experience?
Нет, Союз, я никогда не летал на одном и том же типе Союза. Союз постоянно модернизируется и модернизируется в сторону новейших технологий. И вот сейчас Союз, большая часть Союза, инженеры пытаются сделать цифровой. У нас уже система управления движением цифровая, у нас уже система навигации цифровая. Союз может осуществлять контакт и обмениваться данными со спутниками-ретрансляторами. Поэтому путь идет к еще большей автономности и современности.
Well, frankly speaking, I've never flown on the one and the same Soyuz. The Soyuz vehicle is always different. It keeps being modernized. New technologies keep being added to the Soyuz. Right now, the far bigger portion of the Soyuz is digital. There are modernization in the motion control system, the navigation system. The Soyuz can establish and maintain contact with relay satellites, so it's moving more and more towards the fully autonomous part.
All right. In addition to having the media here with us and a few rugby players, we also have some NASA interns. So why don't we open it up to a few questions on this side of the room? Looks like we've got one over here. Okay.
Hi, my question is for Oleg. I was born in Ukraine, and I just read a book by Scott Kelly, Endurance, about his year in space, and I noticed a couple of really interesting things about how he describes Russian traditions. For example, Fridays, how you guys all meet and have dinners and things like that. So do you have any favorite things that you're like to culturally share with other countries?
Ну, конечно, вы правильно отметили, что у нас есть достаточно хорошие культурные традиции в России. И, например, в моих предыдущих полетах, когда суббота и воскресенье совпадало с какими-то праздничными днями, например, с 9 мая, мы, естественно, смотрели российские фильмы «В бой идут одни старики». Я сейчас уже не скажу сразу какие, но они были абсолютно понятны для всех. Вот, не требовали особого перевода. Затем, конечно, мы практически все космонавты, астронавты любят музыку. Вот, я и так любил Coldplay, но благодаря Скотту Келли я стал еще больше любить эту группу, поэтому такие вот культурные обмены.
You are absolutely right. Russia is rich in cultural traditions. You know, when we would have major holidays fall on a Saturday or Sunday, such as, say, May 9th, the Victory Day, in Russia, we would watch old Russian films. And those films are understandable to everybody, and no translation needed, basically. Or one more thing, music. Music is everybody's language. I did like the Coldplay group before, but thanks to Scott Kelly, I'm now even more into it.
Well, why don't we open up that a little bit to the rest of the crew as well? Are there traditions or cultural things that y'all are looking forward to sharing, or that you've been excited to learn from one another?
You know, it's interesting. One thing we all think come to realize with all the time we spent training in Russia is that initially you go there, it's a business trip your first time, and you come back home, and it was like an experience. You go back again for training over years and years, and you realize at some point there starts to be two lives in parallel. And there's, you know, the Canadian David, there's the American David here at JSC, and there's the Russian David in Star City. And you know, it's starting to be three different person a little bit. I eat different things, I dress differently, you know, and just learning another language makes you somehow think differently. And so it is a personal kind of wealth that we derive from learning a different culture, not just working or collaborating, we're actually living there, you know. And by the time we reach orbit, we have spent so much time in each other's countries that it's kind of seamless. It's more than work, really. It's another part of your life. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think you really nailed it. When to me, I've always loved traveling and being in other countries, but not just to visit. I like to go there and live, you know, and that's just like the International Space Station. You know, we're not visiting; we're going there to live, and that's going to be our home, and we're going to fully adapt to it. And you know, going to Russia, it is absolutely a second home right now. And you know, I always tell people it's amazing the perspective you get when you get out of your comfort zone long enough to make it your comfort zone. You know, and so it's amazing to watch, you know, all around the world. We also travel to Japan and Germany and Canada, and to see how people on the other side of the world approach the exact same problems with, you know, and come up with different solutions. You know, when I go to Russia and I go grocery shopping and the carts move sideways, I'm like, yes, why don't we have these in the U.S.? So it's fun, the little things you can learn, but getting comfortable in another culture, it just really helps you understand different perspectives and really that we're not that different from each other. We have far more similarities.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I may add, Oleg knows another culture we don't know. He knows the culture of space station, of living in space. And I think that's yet another environment we too will have to learn to live there, and it will be, I'm sure it will be completely disorienting initially, but eventually we'll wake up figuring, well, I live here. This is just where I am.
And he'll laugh at us,
He'll
just
laugh
like he
at
is
us.
right now.
As we crash into the walls, trying to fly from module to module.
Well, we actually have a couple of questions from social media that maybe Oleg can help, because they're about living in space, and you can tell us the answers and also share it with David and Ann. But one thing they did ask, and this one is from Hamza on social media, is in the Soyuz capsule, do astronauts keep the same position of launch during the whole journey, or are you able to get up and move, and do you feel cramped?
Ну, это вообще самые такие вот обычные вопросы. Люди с удивлением узнают, что когда мы прибываем на станцию, мы снимаем скафандры. Большинство людей думает, что мы работаем, живем и летаем на станции в скафандре. Также и вот этот вопрос относится к этому разряду. Естественно, мы в такой позе, как, я не знаю, гонщики Формулы-1, находимся в специальном ложементе, который нам помогает перенести нагрузки выведения, нагрузки посадки. Но после того, как мы стартовали, вывелись на орбиту, естественно, мы покидаем свои кресла, снимаем скафандры и можем принимать любые позы в Союзе. Союз это позволяет.
It's funny how you can hear same type of questions over and over again. Like, for instance, I learned that people are surprised learning that we actually remove our suits when we get to the ISS. They think that we live on the ISS all the time wearing our spacesuits. As for the Soyuz vehicle, we have seats, and the seats help us to overcome the loads that occur when ascending and landing. But once in orbit, we get out of the suits and we can move around, and we can our bodies can assume any position we would like to be in.
That's good to hear. We have a couple of questions from school kids who are watching, I think classes who are watching together. One is from Mrs. Kirsch's 4th grade class. They want to know how fast spaceships can go.
So, very fast. So imagine in your mind, how big is 1 mile? You know how big is a mile? Maybe distance from your school to some other place in your town that you can think of. 5 miles? You can imagine how big that is, 5 miles. Spaceships go 5 miles every second. That's how fast they go.
Pretty impressive.
That's several times the speed of a bullet. Several times the speed of the fastest airplane. That means we go around the world, the whole world, in an hour and a half. It's unbelievably fast. It's as if it's as if you were throwing something so fast that by the time it fell, it was already on the other side of the horizon. And it just keeps falling around the world. And you stay on orbit. But you got to go really, really fast. That's why you need a rocket to go to space.
Hope that helps with your math questions coming up. One more from Mrs. Hunter's 7th grade class. How do you communicate from different parts of the space station?
So the space station, we're actually very spoiled. This is one of the things in low Earth orbit that we have is very good communication with the ground. We can send data back and forth. The people that are actually flying the space station, operating the systems, are mostly located on the ground, and primarily in Moscow and here in Houston. So they can send commands and actually fly the vehicle, change the orientation of the vehicle. We have voice commands or voice communication with one another. So the inside of the livable area of the space station is about 3,400 square feet, so maybe a typical 4-bedroom house. And so we have a great intercom system. So if Oleg's on the other side of the station and we want to talk, I can just push a button and intercom back to him. We have multiple space-to-ground communications. So we have space-to-ground that go through satellites, and then we have direct line-of-sight VHF radios to talk to the ground. And so communication we're very spoiled with. And what's interesting is that today we were having a conversation about when we moved to the moon gives us a little bit of a delay in communications, and then Mars gives us a huge delay in communications to where the command of the spaceship and the solving the problems is not going to come through direct communication with the ground. It's going to have to come with those answers living on board that vehicle. And that's going to be one of the biggest leaps from going to the space station environment that we're in now to back to deep space exploration.
Something to figure out, but something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
All right, I know we also have a lot of media who are joining us from the Canadian Space Agency, so we're going to give them a little bit of time now to ask some of their questions. We'll go to them on the phone bridge now.
Hi, Philippe Mercure. I'm from the newspaper La Presse in Montreal. The question is for David Saint-Jacques, perhaps for other members as well. The topic is hard to avoid. We learned this week there was a hole in the International Space Station, and that this hole, according to Roscosmos, could have been made deliberately. Do you discuss the situation together, and what are your feelings today concerning this strange situation?
Yeah, we were following this event, as it was going on. Of course, we received these emails from the Mission Control Center and heard that, wow, this pressure is going down. And to us, first, what that means is like a wake-up call that, all this training we're going through, it's not a joke. It can actually come to be useful. So it makes you want to study even harder and train harder to be ready to respond to any problem like that. Looks like, fortunately, the situation was resolved, and not only did they find the hole, but they managed to plug it. So now pressure is very stable, last we heard, touch wood. So this is all very reassuring for our friends on board. Now the investigation is going on as to what happened, what is this? It's still a bit of a mystery. It's like a detective job. That's one question. The more important question is making sure the spacecraft is actually okay. Space station is okay, the Soyuz is okay, and that's really what's on the forefront of everybody's mind, making sure that the crew on board, the vehicle is okay, therefore the crew is okay, they have a way to come back home. And so far it looks like we got lucky, and if there was a meteor height, for example, a meteor hit, it did not break anything crucial to the Soyuz or station. So we're all kind of relieved. A lot of people had a sigh of relief when we plugged that hole and saw the pressure stabilize.
Hi, my name is Marley, and I'm here representing Black Girls Magazine, and my question is for David Saint-Jacques. In the next 50 years, where do you see space programs in terms of exploring the possibility of living on other planets considering Earth's environmental state now?
Yes, the next 50 years, right? For the generation of the interns who are here, and my children who are even younger, and this is a big moment in the human spaceflight, in the history of spaceflight, because We have been to the moon, a couple decades ago. We came back kind of almost holding our breath for short missions. Then we've been living in the low Earth orbit environment, learning more about how to live in low Earth orbit, how to live in space for a long time. It's as if almost we had been, getting our camping gear ready in the backyard of our home. And now when we're really ready, then we can take that camping gear and go to Everest. And our Everest is Mars. And there's a couple of questions to be resolved. Anybody here who's got any kind of space pedigree will know that we haven't figured out all the answers yet, but we will. And the people who will are people who are young today. I'm not going to Mars, I may be an old professor for astronauts back then, but it's people who are going to Mars are probably born already, but they're children or young people right now. So it is a dream that for the next generation, but we're making decisions right now as to which way we can bring those projects for the next generation. So I think what we can see in the next 50 years is certainly, as Anne pointed out, continued presence in low Earth orbit, because this is a great place from which we can observe our planet, take care of our planet, learn more about space-like environment, and do amazing research. But then we will start to venture deeper and deeper into the universe, because that's in our nature. It's that same drive that got us out of the caves millions of years ago, and then up on top of mountains, in the next valley, and then across the oceans, up in the air, and now space is our next challenge. And it is, I think, something that we just have at the heart, at the bottom of the heart of humanity, is this desire to explore. And the challenges of space exploration are such that it kind of galvanizes the energy and brings the best out of the human soul and the human spirit and the human inventivity. And that way, we get all sorts of benefits for everybody else that kind of just trickle down from this desire to explore further and further. So it's the dawn of a great era in space exploration.
Elizabeth Howell, freelance journalist based in Ottawa, Canada. David, it's been a long wait for you, 9 years. Can you talk a little bit about the advantages and the disadvantages of having such a long time for training before your first space flight?
Well, you can, in a way, you can say I've been preparing for this all my life, and we all have been, right? I like to say I started as an astronaut when I was a little schoolboy, really. The first time that I learned about maths and physics and about how to train and how to be serious and do my homework and how to, how to become responsible. So it's been a year of getting ready. Strictly speaking, several years of training technically for this mission, certainly. There is a couple of advantages. I mean, it is long because there's a lot to learn. There's no way to cut it much. Certainly one nice aspect of it is we get to know each other because we train together, and therefore by the time we get to orbit, we're already a team. We're already a very functional team. So I think that's a very nice aspect of this of all the training years, is the fact that we get to know each other so well. And not only the crew, but also the support team, the flight controllers. We get to know everybody who's working backstage. We're the people on stage, and everybody sees the astronauts. But of course, there's thousands of people working backstage, making these missions possible, making sure that we, come back alive from those missions, having accomplished these incredible tasks that other people have designed for us. So it is a long training plan, but it's well worth it.
Hi, my name is Hélène Lorrain from En 5 Minutes, Québécois Média, and my question is for David Saint-Jacques. It's been a hot couple of months and in Montreal and elsewhere in the world, and a hot couple of years, actually. Is there a special emphasis or a special project for the mission regarding climate change?
Generally speaking, I think going to low Earth orbit, for a personal level, the first thing anybody wants to do is turn around, look out the window, and see where you're coming from. It may be a bit paradoxical, putting so much energy and training into leaving the Earth, but the first thing you want to do is look back at the Earth. And that perspective that we have gained of our beautiful planet from orbit, I think is, probably the seed at the origin of the environmental movement, and at the root of this consciousness we now have of how beautiful, amazing, and fragile our planet is. So certainly that pervades the entire space program. this notion that we have to be responsible for our planet, that it is our spacecraft. You know, we talk about the space station as this amazing machine that keeps 5, 6 people alive in the deadly vacuum of space. But what about planet Earth? Completely autonomous, completely self-contained. Everything is recycled in this giant loop, and it has been keeping billions of people and billions of other species alive in a deadly vacuum of space. And I think, so that realization, that perspective, we owe it to spaceflight, and it is one of the fundamental aspects of it. And I think one of the most beautiful thing it has given us is that sense of responsibility for spaceship Earth.
Good afternoon. Sean Costello, Spaceflight Insider. David, a question for you, if I may. Can you please share some of the ways that you will be collecting and preserving your personal thoughts, observations, and emotions as you experience spaceflight for the first time?
Interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them will have to be stored in my wife's brain, because I will call her every day and tell her what I feel. She'll be the first recipient of all this, so maybe we should record our phone conversations. Certainly hope to be able to share this experience with as many people as possible. You cannot hoard such an experience, and it only makes sense, I think, if you share it, and it amplifies it and makes it even more worthwhile. So it's one of those things, you can prepare all you want, I think, for space flight, but when you talk to veterans, they kind of look at the rookie and say, well, you'll see, it's hard to explain. It's just a strange place. And, you know, we have to rely on our capacity to adapt, and amazingly enough, people can adapt to that strange environment. So, but I certainly hope I'll be able to share this experience with as many people as possible and welcome them on board.
You've been sharing it so far. I think both of you, and maybe Oleg has an account too, but on social media, on Twitter, Astro_David S.
S,
right?
that's right.
All right.
His name was David W. Williams.
Oh, already taken. And Astro Animal, right?
Correct.
And Ann is ANN, Animal.
Yes.
Next question.
Hi, Vanessa Lee with CTV News. The question is for David. With just over 3 months to go, I'm just wondering what you feel the biggest challenges are right now in being prepared for your mission.
Yeah, so 3 months might seem like a long time, but it's actually not that much time left. And so after, you know, like a year and a half, 2 years almost of training, we're more or less done with the technical aspects of our training. We know how to do our tasks, operate the machinery, spacesuit, the robotic arm, Canadarm2, the Soyuz. Now we're entering a different phase where we're learning about the science experiments we're going to do. We're learning to become, you know, useful, if you want, to the scientists on the planet, on Earth, who have prepared all the suite of experiments for us on board. We're also the subject ourselves of a lot of experiments, measurements on our own bodies as a baseline to determine what's going to happen to us in orbit and later on. And maybe at a personal level, the biggest phase of preparation now is kind of we're nesting. We're all in some way making sure our family is going to be okay through this, that we're going to be okay through just our personal affairs. You get a sense that, 2 years out, it's too far to think about that. But a couple of months out, you're starting to think, well, I'm actually leaving for a long time in a very faraway place. I better make sure everything is in order in my life before I do that, and my family is okay. So for me, I think for my colleagues too, that occupies a lot of our mind at this time.
That leads into a good social media question that we have from Jeb, asking, do the crew members make any changes to their diet or exercise routines ahead of their mission?
So ahead of the mission, I think maybe we focus on some of the particular muscle groups or endurance that are required to work like in the spacesuit. But in general, we kind of keep up with our normal fitness routine on the ground. Now in space, fitness is not just something that's nice to have, or it's actually, we call it a countermeasure, because it is actually critical to our bodies, both muscles and bone, that we're loading and exercising up on station. You know, we talk about ISS as a proving ground and figuring out what questions to answer for deep space exploration. Well, a perfect example is when humans started living on the space station, they were losing bone mass, bone density at a rate of like 1.5% per month. And that's like on par with an osteoporotic elderly female. You know, it's not something that a 40-year-old healthy person should be experiencing. And so from that, they did a lot of experiments and analysis of this, and they developed what we call countermeasures, where we actually work out about 2 hours a day, every single day when we're in space, both for cardiovascularly and loading. We have a machine called the ARED, and we can do squats and curls and everything that you can do in the gym. And part of that is for muscles, but part of that is for loading the bones. And as soon as we launched ARED, we've been able to essentially stop the bone density loss amongst astronauts. Now our next question is, are the bones that are regenerating themselves on space station as good as the bones that we develop here on the Earth? And so that's kind of the next phase of what we're really looking at. So we do a lot of scans, and David mentioned that we do a lot of experiments on ourselves, and bone scans is one of them, understanding the structures of bones and how we build bones when we're in space. So we do exercise quite a lot down here and up there just to anticipate these effects and be as resilient as we can.
Right. And just a quick plug, after this, later today at 4:15 p.m. Central Time, Anne is going to be showing us around the lab that we use here on Earth to teach the astronauts how to use the space equipment in Earth, or exercise equipment in space, rather. And so that'll be on the International Space Station Facebook page at 4:15 p.m. Central Time. We have a few U.S. reporters on the phone bridge as well, so why don't we go to them next? Let's start with Megan from space.com.
Hey, thank you guys. I was curious if each of you could talk a little bit about the tasks that you're most excited to complete while you're at the station.
For me, I'm actually overwhelmed at the quantity of tasks that we have, and in a good way, because one of the really neat things about going to the space station for a 6-month period is that we don't specialize. When we were flying shuttle 7 to 14-day missions, each person had a very defined role, a defined task, and we knew what spacewalks they were going to be doing, what repairs they were going to be doing. We're going for a period of 6 months, and there's planned science and planned maintenance, and then we know that there's unplanned. When we say unplanned, it's kind of a known unknown, where we know the things that could break. We don't know if they're going to break or when they're going to break. We can sort of anticipate that. But understanding that only about half of what we're planning for is going to be what we end up doing, and being able to be to react to whatever comes on board. So one of the things I've really liked is getting into academic areas that I had no experience with before. I'm an aerospace engineer by training, and I was a test pilot in the Army. And one of my favorite things to do here is biology and learning about the human body and some of these science experiments. And to me, that's really fascinating. And I'm like, man, I could have had a totally different career and really loved it also. So I'm really excited to be able to do that. Now, for me personally, what I'm most excited about is spacewalks. And we have some kind of penciled in for our mission. And I think that's just, it's what I dreamed of when I was a little 5-year-old girl. And it's pretty neat to think that maybe in the next 6 months it could be happening. So.
Yeah, I think spacewalks is on everybody's bucket list, and definitely as you are going through basic training as an astronaut, it's the most astronaut-y thing we do, to train in this giant pool. We have a giant pool with a big enough to have a replica of space station to scale in there, and we wear real spacesuits. And so it's been years and years of training to be ready to just say that, I can do one if the need be. People like Oleg have done several spacewalks already, know the feeling, know the drill. But for rookies like us, I think it remains a very kind of a magical thing out there. So that's high on everybody's bucket list. Personally, also another aspect is all the medical research we'll do. I'm a physician by training, and I worked in a little remote community, and I know very well the frustrations and the limitation of to do medical care in a faraway place, far from big centers. And so if you think about it, running a hospital or a clinic in the Arctic is a bit like taking care of astronauts on board a space station. You're just as far away from help in both cases. And it's a perfect example of where technology is developed for space applied directly on Earth and vice versa. And so I'm looking forward to contributing to that.
Oleg, is there anything that you're still looking forward to? Or is it all old hat by now?
Я с удовольствием делаю любые эксперименты, потому что я понимаю, что те эксперименты, которые выполняются на борту, люди затратили достаточно много усилий, чтобы они появились в космосе. Поэтому я — это руки, мозг и глаза ученого, и стараюсь выполнить любой эксперимент максимально точно, корректно, для того, чтобы был результат. Поэтому я все делаю с удовольствием. Единственное, что я делаю без особого удовольствия, это, конечно, каждую субботу нам планируют уборку станции. Поэтому, наверное, как и любому мужчине, это дело достаточно сложно. Я делаю это, я подчиняюсь, но без особого удовольствия.
Frankly, I like all kinds of experiments, special experiments on board. I know that lots of effort and lots of resources went into them so they could appear on board the ISS. And I'm fully aware that I'm acting as the brain, the eyes, and the hands of the scientists behind those experiments. So I like everything. There's probably one exception. On Saturdays, we're scheduled to do the cleaning of the space station. And of course, I submit to do that, but I'm not a fan of that.
We probably have some volunteers here in the room who would come clean.
Мы не откажемся.
All right. I think next we have the U.S. Army, which is Anne's origin for us. They're on the phone as well. Jason Cutshaw.
Hello, Anne. Question I have is, first of all, how excited are you to be going into space, and how has the Army prepared you for this adventure?
Capturing my emotions, I think, is really hard to put to words. You know, I think when you're accomplishing a task like this, that it's pretty phenomenal, but it also takes your complete concentration to do it safely and do it well. I tend to handle emotions by just preparing more, because emotions aren't helpful when you get into a dynamic, high-gain environment. That's something that I learned flying helicopters in combat. Good and bad emotions aren't helpful, so only preparation is. So if I get too excited or too nervous, I just study more. But as far as the Army preparing me, the Army's given me everything that I have as an adult. You know, I joined the Army when I was 18 years old. It was over 20 years ago. It gave me my undergraduate college education. It gave me 2 master's degrees. It gave me flight school, test pilot school. But I think most importantly, the Army gave me leadership experience. Really humbling, selfless leadership experience. And you know, I went into the Army, I think, probably a little overconfident in some of my abilities, and I came out very humbled and very in awe of the people that I serve with, and in recognition that I could never accomplish remotely what others can when given the right tools, and that my biggest role as a leader or as a member of the team is to enable other people around me to perform at their optimal, at their best. And so instead of being the leader out front that, you know, just tries to do everything or to give the commands, I try to be the leader that synergizes the team and tries to recognize barriers to the team around me and knock those barriers down. Our soldiers in our military are some of the most innovative, smart, dedicated, selfless people that I've ever worked with in my life, and I'm humbled every day to even just be among their ranks. And I really learn from them to trust the people around me. And here at NASA, our lives depend on each other every day. I was at a vacuum chamber last week, and you know, real vacuum chamber that has real threat to your body. And you know, these guys put on my gloves and my pants and did all my leak checks and made sure everything was good. And you know, my life was in their hands last week, and it will be again. And I'm okay with that. And I kind of learned to let that trust, have that trust in the Army.
All right, great. Okay, I think we have time for just a question or two more here in the room. Start with Alex from the Chronicle. Give us just a second to get the microphone down. Oh, okay, we'll come to you next, I promise.
George Simonis here. I was just wondering, from an intern's perspective, what advice would each of you give myself and the rest of us interns here in the room, just life experience and advice that you'd provide to us in our positions right now? And when would you say is too late or too old to try and strive to where you guys are sitting right now?
I think that's a great question. I think one of us, something that each of us will have our own perspectives on. What I tell people that I actually learned this playing on the U.S. rugby team, and our national team coach told us, if we're going to be successful in the next World Cup, then I need each of you to be the weird one. And what he meant by that is, he said, when all your friends are going out, you need to go to the gym. When everybody else is, you know, eating wrong, you need to eat clean. When everybody else is going on vacation, you need to buckle down and have 2-a-days. And I really looked back at my life, and I thought, you know, it's really true. You know, I remember being at West Point, and this has been a goal of mine forever, and I always thought along every step of the way I need to be absolutely the best that I can. And so, you know, I was the weird one with my physics books doing homework and problem sets, and I would go to Olive Garden and do it, you know, just to sit at a restaurant and do homework. And I was the weird one, but it makes the difference. You know, if you do the same thing everybody else does, you're going to get what everybody else does. If you want to do something amazing and something great, then you need to start being different today, and you need to stay dedicated to that. And there is nothing that you're doing that's not important. That's the other advice I would give you. You need to excel in everything, even if you think it's not directed at the mission. Right now, when we select astronauts, we look at the breadth and the depth of experience. And so, you know, I majored in aerospace engineering, but my grades that I got in my history classes and my social studies classes, those are just as important. And the courses that I took for aviation were just as important as the courses that I took for professional development in the Army that maybe weren't as directly related to this. So excel in everything that you're doing and be the weird one.
That would make a good hashtag, be the weird one. All right.
If I can add one thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it is difficult. It takes a lot of energy to have that much kind of thrust forward and dedication. And the only real way that you can achieve it is if you pick something you love. You know, you're not going to be excellent at something you don't really, really like. So maybe that's like step number 0, is making sure that you select a career path that you love so much that you have no problem becoming the best at it and giving all that energy into it. Because there is no magic solution. It starts with being happy, really, where you are.
Yeah, I agree. Good advice. Anything you would like to add, Oleg?
Ну, я бы добавил, что вы должны все-таки сохранять детское любопытство, должны интересоваться и иметь желание познавать и учиться, потому что конечных знаний никогда не бывает.
I would add that you need to maintain childish curiosity, be always interested, and keep up that desire to explore and to learn something new, because this can never end.
Okay. All right, well, we'll wrap up with a question from Alex.
Alex Stuckey with the Houston Chronicle. I hate to return to the whole, but I was hoping that I could get everyone else's perspective on this, especially since there is a question about whether it's a defect in the other Soyuzes that are currently in development. So just if I could get everybody else's thoughts on it, that would be great.
Sure, yes. I know this is a big issue, and a lot of people have been reading about it and thinking about it. And I can say that nobody's probably thought about it more than those of us working inside the space program right now. The importance of figuring out how to prevent something like this in the future. You know, we're looking at our how we found it and everything, and evaluating our procedures is important. I think the gravity of some of the accusations we have to be very careful about. And Roscosmos has convened a state commission to look into this. And I personally have 100% faith in that commission. They have a very long history of safe spaceflight. And I know the people there, I work with the people there, and I trust them just as I trust the people here at NASA. And they will figure it out, and they will not let an unsafe vehicle fly.
Ну, как вы знаете, сейчас создано несколько различных комиссий с различными уровнями ответственности. И в энергии проверяют весь технологический процесс создания данного союза. Я думаю, что это случай единичный, но все равно принято решение проверить и прогресс, и наш союз. Я думаю, что специалисты до конца разберутся, в чем причина. И я думаю, что это не фатально. Это просто вот так случилось. Так получилось.
Actually, there are several commissions and committees that were set up, and different levels of responsibilities. Energia is looking into the entire technological process. Personally, I think this is an exception. This is just an occurrence, a single-out case. But just in case they're checking out the Progress vehicle and our own Soyuz, I'm sure that specialists will find out what went wrong. And I'm positive this is, as I said, just an exception. It just so happened.
All right. Well, I think that is just about all the time that we have. But I did want to put out another reminder that you can follow along with the Expedition 58 and 59 crew members as they go through their training on social media. Anne is on Twitter at astroanimal, and that is ASTROANNIMAL. And then David is on Twitter as well at astro_David or David S. So you want to follow along as they go through their training. You can also look for the International Space Station's account on Facebook at facebook.com/ISS or on Instagram at instagram.com/ISS. So we thank you for joining us and have a great day.